The world of cinema has lost one of its brightest lights. On September 16, 2025, Robert Redford, the man who defined an era of Hollywood sophistication, passed away peacefully at his Sundance home in Utah. He was 89 years old. For millions, this news felt like time stopped. Countless tributes flooded social media. Tweets, Instagram Reels, TikToks, and YouTube Shorts all echoed the same sentiment: a legend is gone. Some fans wrote, "Rest in peace, Robert Redford," while others shared clips of his most iconic roles, reminding us all why he became more than just a movie star. He became a cultural statement. On platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Redford trended globally within hours. But unlike many celebrity deaths that vanish in a day, his name stayed at the top for a week. Why? Because Robert Redford was not just remembered for his looks or the films he made, but for the worlds he reshaped, both in Hollywood and in independent cinema. On Instagram, millions resurfaced classic movie posters like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. Fans bound these images with heartfelt captions. "My father took me to see this film when I was 10. Today I cry for both the movie and the man." On TikTok, younger generations who had never seen Redford's work in theaters were captivated by edits of his most famous scenes, especially that unforgettable smile from The Great Gatsby, reminding viewers that true screen presence is timeless. But not all posts were celebratory. Some revealed a bittersweet tone, emphasizing his struggle in later years. Long threads detailed how illness shadowed his final decade, and how he quietly withdrew from the spotlight. To many, it showed that behind Hollywood glamour was a human being carrying the same burdens as everyone else: age, frailty, and solitude. But who really was Robert Redford before the fame? Before the piercing eyes and the sophisticated charisma turned him into a Hollywood icon, he was simply Charles Robert Redford Jr., a boy from Santa Monica, California. He grew up in a modest household. His father was an accountant, and his mother, a homemaker, filled their small home with care. But Robert was never the typical schoolboy. He loved art more than arithmetic, nature more than lectures, and sports more than textbooks. He attended the University of Colorado briefly, but rebellion soon caught up with him. He lost his scholarship because of drinking and poor grades, a devastating setback that left him drifting. For a time, it looked like his future had no clear direction, but fate had other plans. In this uncertain phase, he met Lola Van Wagenen, a young woman with a grounded spirit and traditional values. She came from Provo, Utah, a deeply Mormon household, and her presence brought something Redford desperately needed: stability. Their marriage in 1958 grounded him. At first, it gave Redford an anchor. But Hollywood is never kind to personal lives. While his career skyrocketed, his home life became turbulent. This conflict is something fans often debate in Reddit threads and Instagram comment sections today. Young cinephiles ask, did Robert Redford sacrifice happiness for greatness? Older fans chime in by saying his story is the same as many legendary actors: the glamour of the screen masking the cost of broken hours, lost family time, and strained relationships. Redford himself admitted in interviews that fame drove a wedge between his personal identity and the public image. The man who valued solitude and nature became trapped inside Hollywood's endless spotlight. And yet, paradoxically, that same spotlight made him one of the greatest actors of all time. Robert Redford wasn't satisfied with just acting. During the golden decades of Hollywood, he realized that cinema was more than box office numbers. It was a cultural force. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute, which later gave rise to the Sundance Film Festival. On social media today, thousands of independent filmmakers recall how Sundance shaped their careers. TikTok posts overflow with creators saying things like, "Without Redford, I'd never believe indie cinema mattered." Twitter threads highlight how Redford's push for independent filmmaking created an alternative space in Hollywood, one where movies weren't dictated by big studios but by raw creativity. He was not just a star, he was a challenger, a rule breaker, a dreamer who opened doors for countless storytellers. But even giants must eventually grow tired. In his later years, Redford's health declined. He retreated from the public eye, granting fewer interviews and making fewer appearances. Unlike many stars who stay in the limelight until the very end, Redford chose silence. He shifted back to the mountains of Utah, surrounded by landscapes he always loved. It was here, away from glaring Hollywood lights, that he quietly lived his final years. When his death was announced, fans felt sadness, not just because of the man we lost, but also the loneliness implied by his departure. Memes and mourning posts ironically captured this paradox. The man who gave the world beauty passed in solitude. It speaks to something deeper about fame, that even the brightest stars are still human, still fragile, still subject to the same isolation as anyone else. And now, as the legacy of Robert Redford takes its final shape, we are left with profound questions. Did he ever find the full happiness he was searching for? Was the cost of being immortal on screen worth the sacrifices he made off-screen? Social media is full of these reflections. Some fans argue that his true happiness was never in Hollywood, but in founding Sundance, nurturing the creativity of thousands of artists. Others believe his greatest joy was always his family, even if fame tore much of that apart. But perhaps the most moving sentiment is this: Robert Redford never tried to be perfect. He tried to be real, and in a world of superficial stardom and fleeting fame, realness is why he will be remembered forever. Robert Redford was more than an actor. He was a storyteller, a revolutionary, and a man who gave beauty to life even as he wrestled with its shadows. To those watching, if you have ever admired him, let's leave this space as a tribute. Comment below with "Rest in peace, Robert Redford," as a final farewell to a legend who gave himself completely to art. Because in the end, legends don't die. They simply become stories we keep retelling. And Robert Redford's story will never end. The heartbreak of early loss never fully left Robert and Lola, but their home eventually filled with the laughter and promise of 3 children, each growing into a life of their own, each touched by the same artistic spirit and gentle resilience their parents fought so hard to preserve. Shauna Redford, born in 1960, grew up distanced from the Hollywood spotlight, carving out a path not on the screen but upon the canvas. She graduated from the University of Colorado with an art degree, marrying journalist Eric Schlosser in a quiet ceremony surrounded by family in Utah's mountains. Together, they raised 2 children, offering them love and privacy. Born in 1962, James Redford, or Jamie, as he was lovingly known, inherited both creativity and conviction. After graduating from the University of Colorado and Northwestern, he forged his own path as a filmmaker and producer, championing both environmental causes and social change. He founded the Redford Center, a nonprofit committed to environmental films that truly made a difference. Yet Jamie's life was shadowed by illness. In his youth, he battled liver disease that required 2 transplants. Instead of bitterness, he turned his experience into activism, creating documentaries about organ transplants and kindness. After a courageous fight with cancer, Jamie passed away in 2020, at age 58. Across YouTube and Twitter, tributes to Jamie overflow. Fans and activists share clips of his films, praise his gentle presence, and recount how he turned personal pain into hope for others. Robert once said, "My greatest achievement? The children. They're the best thing in my life," a line now reshared as an anthem for any parent who knows pride and grief side by side. The Redford legacy is perhaps most evident in Amy, born in 1970. An actress, director, and producer, she continues to work in theater and film, keeping her father's dedication to the arts alive. Amy's vibrant career and openness invite admiration, with younger fans often noting her balance of independence and family loyalty. Online, Amy's projects are followed closely by those who see her as both her father's echo and an artist forging her own name. Fan channels and indie film blogs host clips, interviews, and stories about the next Redford generation. Despite all their personal struggles, from unspeakable losses to the pressures that come with a family name, the Redfords persevered. Robert never shied away from admitting that scars never really fade, but his children showed the world that new beauty can grow from old wounds. Social media today is filled with tributes to the Redford family, not just for their talents but for their unity. Instagram Reels, TikTok story times, and YouTube documentaries blend the cinematic with the real. Tales of evenings spent with stories at the dinner table, of art blooming where grief once lived, of hope rising through heartbreak. In his last years, Robert Redford withdrew deeper into nature, surrounded by the mountains of Sundance. Even as illness and old age drew a veil of solitude, his home was filled with the presence of family, children, and grandchildren who will carry his light forward. As the news of his passing continues to ripple across the world, one sees a tapestry woven from countless threads: the fearless young man who conquered Hollywood, the grieving father who found meaning beyond fame, and the patriarch whose legacy rests on storytelling, whether by brush, by camera, or by the simple sharing of a life truly lived. Perhaps in the end, the real story of Robert Redford is not just one of stardom, but of endurance, love, and the quiet power of family. For everyone touched by his work or by the stories of his home, the invitation remains: leave a comment, share a story, and say farewell. Because some legacies aren't measured by awards, but by the love that endures beyond the curtain call. In the final act of every great story, tragedy and hope are often woven together. James Redford, the second son of Robert and Lola, became the family's brightest advocate, not only a filmmaker, but a devoted champion for environmental issues and the cause of organ donation. His story, immortalized in the foundation he built, is both a beacon and a heartbreak. James's life was marked by challenge and determination. Diagnosed in his 30s with a rare liver disease, he endured 2 transplants in the 1990s. Instead of letting illness define him, he transformed hardship into service, founding the James Redford Institute for Transplant Awareness, and making films that brought attention to organ donation and clean energy. His documentaries, especially The Kindness of Strangers, are still praised online for their emotional candor and power to educate. In the digital age, James is often featured in YouTube retrospectives and Twitter threads, with activists and ordinary viewers sharing clips and links, captions reading, "He saved more lives with honesty than some do with wealth." Yet the shadow of illness never truly left. In 2020, liver cancer, specifically bile duct cancer, returned with a ferocity that no treatment could contain. James faced it with the same grace he'd shown in life, surrounded in his final days by his wife Kyle, their 2 children, and his parents. Robert did what he could, spending precious time at his son's side. In private letters later quoted in People magazine, he confessed, "Watching your child suffer and being unable to help, that's the worst pain for any father." James passed away on October 16, 2020, at just 58. The family released statements across platforms. He was loved by many. His legacy lives on in his art and advocacy. Social media lit up with heartbreak and tributes. On Instagram, activists and liver transplant recipients remembered James as their hope. Under Twitter, hashtags like Remembering James Redford, fans and fellow filmmakers alike reflected on the dark symmetry of Robert losing both sons, Scott as a baby, James as a man. But more than grief, these posts embodied resolve, a call to action for organ donation, environmental change, and the enduring value of storytelling for good. In this tapestry of pain and resilience, Amy Redford, the youngest, rose into her own as an artist, proudly claiming her space as both director and actress. She has frequently appeared at the Sundance Film Festival, a testament to the legacy her father built and her own creative force. Clips from Amy's films cycle through YouTube, often in video essays that compare her approach to Robert's. Film fans note, she's not just continuing his legacy, she's expanding it. On Sundance red carpets, journalists now ask Amy not just about her famous father, but her own vision for cinema. It's a triumph often chronicled in industry blogs and TikToks by young women filmmakers. Through every storm, Lola stood at the center of the Redford household. When Robert was away on sets or stages, she became the family's anchor, raising their children with unwavering love, shielding them from the glare and chaos of Hollywood. Lola's sacrifices, often invisible, are now celebrated in online women's history projects, Instagram tributes, and heartfelt blog entries about life behind fame. She kept the foundation of our lives steady. Robert once remarked a phrase that now circulates widely as a quote on social media, attached to old family photographs and Mother's Day tributes. Even the deepest bonds can strain and fray under relentless pressure. As Robert's fame soared through the 1970s and 80s, long absences and the demands of global celebrity toll wore into their marriage. The stories of their relationship, its highs and heartbreaks, are a frequent topic of podcasts, film retrospectives, and memoirs. Commenters everywhere reflect on the cost of following a dream. No golden statue could replace the warmth of home. In 1985, after 27 years together, Robert and Lola divorced. This moment, soberly discussed in countless oral histories and online forums, is seen by many fans as a necessary, if painful, fork in the road. For all they'd built, the weight of fame proved too heavy for even their love to carry indefinitely. With each passing decade, new generations discover the Redford story online. YouTube video essays ask, "What is the real cost of greatness?" Twitter threads unite fans in grief and respect, while Instagram is a collage of lost sons, resilient daughters, and the overlooked wife. Hashtags like Keep James' Dream Alive and Always Amy Redford resurface every year at Sundance, reminders that the Redford story continues, reshaped and renewed by those who remain. Despite the cracks and scars, what endures is not tragedy alone, but the relentless will to keep creating, loving, and inspiring. Redford's children and the causes James cherished will carry his legacy. Lola, a silent architect of resilience, remains a role model for those who love from behind the scenes. Even as the world remembers Robert as an icon, it is as a father, husband, and survivor of unthinkable loss where his story finds its greatest, most human depth. New relationships, Lola's own evolution, and the deep meaning and pain of ending a legendary partnership. When a marriage survives nearly 3 decades, the ending is never marked by drama alone. For Robert Redford and Lola Van Wagenen, it was a separation built not on bitterness but necessity, one born from the quiet understanding that time and life sometimes pull strong souls in different directions. It was not anger or resentment that ended their union, but the slow erosion brought by fame, distance, and the relentless passage of years. Robert, shaped by the weight of his creative ambitions, would later confess to moments of regret, wishing he'd given more of his heart to home, less to the bright lights of Hollywood. Yet, as they parted, Robert and Lola remained tethered by friendship and devotion to their children. Like quiet partners in a sacred mission, they shared in raising Shauna, James, and Amy, ensuring that love and stability prevailed even after the foundation of family had changed. Lola did not vanish into the past. The next phase of her life shimmered with purpose. She returned to academia, eventually earning her doctorate in American history from New York University. Her work became a touchstone for causes she always valued: social justice, environmental action, and educational innovation. She went on to co-found organizations that championed consumer rights and environmental protection, emerging as a respected voice for progress and equality. Lola's transformation, rarely seen in the spotlight, was felt in the lives she touched: students, activists, and families who found strength in her advocacy. Her evolution was not only professional, it was personal. Lola proved that the end of one chapter can be the beginning of another, that love for family and conviction for a better world go hand in hand. For Robert, the years that followed were a mosaic of searching and self-discovery. Without the anchor of family structure, he was left to wander through new relationships, each offering lessons, joys, and heartbreak in their own ways. First came Sonia, the Brazilian actress, vibrant, fiery, with an artist's spirit that mirrored Robert's own. Their brief time together was a burst of passion and creative camaraderie. But like many flames, it burned out quickly, leaving behind sweet echoes that Robert carried forward. Then, Lana, Swedish star of Havana, whose gentle beauty and thoughtful soul awakened Robert's softer side. Their romance grew out of shared vulnerability, yet lifestyles and fame's demands conspired to keep them apart. Both moved on in grace. Kathy, the costume designer, was a different kind of companion. In her simplicity and quiet, Robert found the stability he longed for in chaotic days. Their connection was deep, rooted in presence more than excitement. But here too, life led each along separate paths. Not every romance after heartbreak is meant to last. Still, each relationship shaped Robert, showing him new facets of intimacy, support, and companionship. With every journey, he grew wiser about what peace truly means when the cameras stop rolling and the crowds fade away. Sometimes the greatest revelations come from connections that end too soon. With each person who entered his world, Robert discovered that love is never singular. He cherished the memories and honors the role each woman played in his search for healing and meaning. Beyond romance, Robert's life was punctuated by friendships whose influence would linger long past the end of their films together. Collaborators like Jane Fonda and Candice Bergen stood out, not simply as legends but as confidants whose wisdom and laughter carried Robert through both professional glory and private struggle. Jane Fonda's warmth and candor became pillars in Robert's later years, their multiple film partnerships forging a connection built on deep mutual respect. The world may remember their on-screen chemistry, but for Robert, the true legacy was friendship, a bond more lasting than any script. The story of Redford and Lola's family is not one of failure, but of transformation. To witness an epic bond dissolving is to learn how even the strongest love can change shape, endure differently, and inspire new possibilities. After nearly 30 years, they proved love's strength by how gently and respectfully it ended. Robert often described Lola as the pillar of his existence, her influence echoing even after their lives diverged. For him, the lessons of family, heartbreak, and hope became the compass that guided every choice in the chapters that followed. The dissolution of a legendary family is a story of pain, resilience, and new horizons. What endures is not the certainty of unbreakable bonds, but the knowledge that love, if true, finds ways to last, sometimes in children, sometimes in mutual respect, and always in the quiet courage to begin again. Robert Redford's life was a complex tapestry woven with art, love, friendship, and relentless pursuit of truth. On screen, his partnerships with some of Hollywood's brightest stars left an indelible mark, none more timeless than his connection with Jane Fonda. Their story began decades ago with Tall Story in 1960, a film that was the first of many to spotlight their unique chemistry. Across films like The Chase and Barefoot in the Park, Redford and Fonda captivated audiences not just with their acting, but with an effortless rapport that felt genuine and unforced. Jane Fonda once confessed that she was drawn not only to Robert's striking presence, but also his commanding professionalism, a man who showed up fully committed and honest in his craft. Though she admitted to feelings of affection, their relationship never crossed into romance, held in place by mutual respect and the ties of marriage to others at the time. Behind the scenes, Redford was often reserved, sometimes distant, a complexity Jane openly acknowledged, calling him a man with a problem with women. Yet through years of collaboration, their bond evolved into a deep and lasting friendship that would span 6 decades. Their later reunion in 2017's Our Souls at Night was not just a film, it was a meditation on companionship and the quiet dignity of second chances. This bittersweet collaboration resonated worldwide, showing a softer, reflective side of two legends who shared more than just the screen. Another intriguing chapter in Robert's life was his brief but electrifying connection with Candice Bergen. Sharing the screen in The Hunting Party, their undeniable chemistry sparked rumors of a romance, fueled by press speculation. Yet, the truth remained closer to friendship and professional admiration. Neither ever confirmed the romantic whispers, and from all accounts, their bond was brief, another thread in the rich pattern of relationships that defined Redford's journey. This relationship, like many others, did not steer Robert's life off course. Instead, it contributed to the mosaic of experiences that shaped his understanding of love, trust, and companionship. But it was not amidst the flashing cameras or glittering award shows that Robert found his truest partner. In 2009, he and Sibylle Sagers, a German environmental artist, married in a quiet ceremony far from Hollywood's glare. Their meeting was serendipitous but grounded in shared values, a bond forged through mutual respect for art, nature, and the pursuit of meaning beyond fame. Sibylle wasn't drawn by stardom but by the man who valued simplicity and spirit over celebrity. Together, they co-created The Way of the Rain, an evocative project blending artistic expression and environmental advocacy. Sibylle leads their creative direction, while Robert weaves stories that inspire and call for collective responsibility. Their life together is a testament to renewal, choosing tranquility, purpose, and a deep connection with the world around them over the chaos of past triumphs. To grasp the full arc of Robert Redford's legacy, one must step back to where it all began: Santa Monica. Born to a modest working-class family, Robert's early years were marked by bursts of creative energy and tragedy. A childhood polio diagnosis almost imprisoned a restless spirit, and the death of his mother at just 40 years old forced young Robert to find strength in silence and solitude. These early shadows imbued his later art with profound depth, an understanding that life's beauty is inseparable from its fragility. From rebellious youth to Broadway star, Robert's relentless drive brought him to the spotlight. His breakthrough in Barefoot in the Park showed the world an actor capable of wit, charm, and subtle vulnerability. The iconic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid transformed Robert Redford into a legend, a symbol of audacity and style. The Sundance Kid became more than a character. It became a persona that redefined Hollywood cool. In the decades that followed, Redford filled his reel with stories that often echoed social truths, exposing political corruption, exploring familial wounds, and celebrating the power of nature. Robert's true gift was not just captured on film, but in the worlds he created beyond the camera. The Sundance Institute and Film Festival are his enduring legacies, nurturing generations of filmmakers, amplifying voices otherwise unheard. By dedicating himself to independent cinema, Redford revolutionized Hollywood's landscape, insisting that authentic stories deserved a spotlight. His vision transformed Sundance from a small mountain retreat into a global powerhouse of film and art. Robert Redford's life was a blend of luminous peaks and quiet valleys. His personal losses, the deaths of sons Scott and James, cast long shadows over successes and celebrations. Yet through it all, his commitment to art and activism remained steadfast. In his final years, he turned inward to painting and environmental work, supported by his beloved Sibylle, finding peace away from the spotlight, but never from purpose. On September 16, 2025, Robert Redford passed away quietly at 89. The world mourned the loss of a cinematic titan, but the true tribute lies in the stories he told, the creators he inspired, and the legacy that continues to shape art and conscience. Robert Redford was not simply a star with piercing blue eyes. He was a storyteller who gave voice to our collective dreams, a man who showed us that the greatest beauty lies in honesty, resilience, and the courage to follow your own path. As curtains close on this extraordinary journey, his flame burns bright in every frame of film, every new voice Sundance nurtures, every brushstroke of his paintings. The silence he leaves behind is profound, but in that silence we feel the echo of a legend who gave all he had, and whose story will never truly end. Robert Redford, 1936 to 2025, the storyteller who changed Hollywood forever. Thank you for watching. Share your favorite Robert Redford moment and keep the legacy alive.